Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Red Path. My name is Dara, and today we're going to be talking about the newly revealed Goremongers for Kill Team. So grab yourselves a brew and let's dive into this review. Well, everyone, welcome back to the Red Path. It's a very interesting Saturday that we have here because GW has surprised all of us by releasing the Goremongers, a squad of mortal followers for the World Eaters coming out for Kill Team, which are pitted against an Ecclesiarchy warband. And this is a very interesting squad for a bunch of different reasons that we're going to talk about today, primarily because they're a new addition for our army, which is badly in need of new units. And I think actually they fulfill a very interesting role on the tabletop, which we're going to talk about as well, and how they're going to kind of function in World Eater armies. We're going to start by kicking off and talking about the models themselves, about what I find interesting about them, the uniqueness of this kit. So let's just dive straight into that. So we have here the Goremongers squad, which is a very interesting squad of mortal followers for the World Eaters, which have essentially seen a bloodletter in battle and lived to tell the tale. And after seeing this bloodletter, they have since become obsessed with the power that these demons of Khorne sort of have within them, and they are trying to emulate them. And the first thing that the Goremongers do to emulate them is to cut off their own legs and replace them with these metal prosthetics that have got that sort of double jointed bloodletter aesthetic about them. And that's a very striking part about the kit. I think it's probably the first thing that jumps out for a lot of people is why do they all have these metal legs? And I think that it's just a really cool idea. I love the lore behind it. It's very world eatery to kind of see a Khorne demon and then just be like, you know what, that was amazing. I'm going to try and be that way myself. And I'm going to cut off my own legs. So, A plus on the lore. Incredible. And it's not just the legs. There's a lot of things across these models which kind of emulate the bloodletters in interesting and subtle ways. And the first thing that we see is that the Bloodhurls, presumably the leader of this squad, has this bloodletter style face mask, which is just incredibly menacing to look at. I absolutely love it. It's got a little bit of an Aztec vibe about it almost, and the rest of the model, he's on this kind of raised sort of rubble piece. He's got this big sort of Khorne berserker style chain weapon, and he's got this really cool totem in his hand as well. The whole thing is just very incredible. He's a great squad leader. And I think one thing that's interesting, and I'm not 100% sure on this, but I'm pretty confident, is that it looks like these guys are all on 32mm bases, which is bigger than the current Jackal kit. And for anyone wondering, this is a unique kit. This isn't an upgrade for the Jackal squad, despite the fact that it looks similar to the Jackals. The posing is entirely different. The weapons that they have is entirely different. Obviously, the legs are completely different too. The only kind of reoccurring feature that's similar to the Jackals is the fact that they have these blood packs as well, which the Jackals have too. And that's about as far as it goes. When it comes to the rest of the kit, it's entirely unique. So this is a unit that is distinct from Jackals, which is very important to remember. If they get rules for 40k, which we can presume that they will, they're not just going to be an upgrade for a Jackal squad. They're going to be their own unit called Goremongers, which is really cool. So the Bloodhurls looks incredible. Really like it. And now we're going to talk about the Impaler, which is a lot of people's favorite model in the kit because he's got a harpoon gun. And every World Eater player loves a harpoon because of the Ursus claws. I think this is awesome. It looks like a tiny version of the harpoon that the Bloodslaughterer has. And that's wicked. This harpoon was also on the rumor engine on Tuesday, and it's already been revealed, which is one of the fastest rumor engines ever. I remember when I saw this on the rumor engine, I was telling people, like, this is definitely not World Eaters. Like, you're high if you think it is. I was so wrong. Like, call me wrong right now. I don't mind. I was completely wrong. Absolutely love these two models here. Really cool, oozing World Eater aesthetics, which is just absolutely brilliant to see. Moving on though, we have two more, I think they're called specialists for Kill Team, but two more unique models within the kit. We've got the Skull Claimer and the Stalker. So the Skull Claimer has this massive two-handed chain axe, which looks great, kind of feels like he's maybe in the sort of Dishonored role of this squad, probably has a combat profile which is a bit meatier than everyone else. He's got an amazing pose, one leg up on that piece of rubble. It just looks so very, very good. Absolutely love this guy. And then the Stalker, I think, is actually the weakest sculpt in the entire kill team. I think the pose that they've tried to go for, where he's kind of like lunging off the rock, it hasn't really come across very well. I do think his weapons are interesting. They're like a scaled down version of the lacerators that the 8 bound have. So I think that's kind of cool. But I just think the pose is a little bit of a miss. He's kind of tilted a little bit too much horizontally. I'm not a huge fan of that one. But one thing that's really cool, and again, harkening back to that bloodletter emulation, is that both of these guys have a face mask which has those little horns coming out on the sides, which kind of, are supposed to represent that bloodletter head, which I think is a really nice piece of detail. And interestingly, the Skull Claimer does actually have actual biological mutation in the form of horns growing out of his shoulders, which is awesome. So let's move on and talk about two more of the specialists. We've got the Insider and the Blood Taker. Both of these are interesting. The Insider is really cool because he's dual wielding pistols, which is a sort of OG World Eater Berserker kind of aesthetic. Really great pose on this one as well. They've managed to capture a lot of dynamism on this miniature, and the way that she's holding the two pistols just looks brilliant. Really, really big fan of that one. The Blood Taker then, sort of a similar kind of vibe. He's got this ritual blade, which is pretty cool. I have no idea what he's holding in his other hand. Is it a vial of blood? Is it a grenade? I'm not sure. Maybe someone else in the comments down below can let me know what that's supposed to be. But again, quite cool. Another cool piece here is the kind of tongue sticking out of the mask. Really, really like that too. I also like the harness on the Blood Taker. It's kind of an interesting sort of variation from the basic sort of jackal aesthetic. Then moving on to the last two that we've seen, which are the aspirants, and are probably two of my favorite miniatures in the entire squad. I've worked with a lot of kill teams, and I think this is like the basic troop within the kill team. And based off the kits that I've worked with before, I would say there's a very, very good chance that you can build the entire Goremonger squad to be aspirants, apart from the Herald. So that's very, very cool for a lot of different reasons. Number one, two-handed chain glaives are awesome. The coolest kind of weapon there is. So if you can get a whole squad out with these guys, that's going to be sick. Absolutely awesome visual. I really, really hope you can do that. I love the oversized weapons, especially the guy raising it over the head. Like almost looks like they're overbalancing, which, brilliant. Absolutely very kind of World Eater style to wield a weapon that you can't fully control yourself. But if you can have a whole squad kitted out with these weapons, I think that's really, really cool and has some interesting implications on the tabletop. But yeah, overall, I think the kit itself is beautiful. It is similar to the Jackals, which is nice because you have that sort of tie-in with the rest of the mortal aspect of the army. But it is unique. It's a brand new mortal squad for the World Eaters, which means we now have actually got two unique mortal units within the army, which is a lot more than any of the other cult legions. So that's really cool. But I guess the question is, what role does it fill in for the World Eaters? Is it significant? Is this an important addition to our army roster? And I think a lot of people online are saying no. And I very much disagree. So we're going to talk about that next. Alrighty, let's talk about what kind of a role the Goremongers could have on the tabletop. This is a very interesting one for a couple of different reasons. I think the Goremongers can actually fill a role that the World Eaters are not so much lacking, but could do more efficiently in their army currently, and that's the role of an early game trade piece. So historically, the way that World Eaters play on the tabletop, at least competitively, is that typically in the first couple of turns, there's a lot of mindless trading where you kind of put your pawns out and try and take the enemy pawns, so to speak, to give a chess analogy. And our pawns are currently not really pawns. A lot of the time they're 5 Khorne Berserkers, they could be 3 8-bound. They're expensive units that you don't want to be giving away necessarily because they're kind of worth a lot of points. But I'm looking at the Goremongers and I'm thinking, well, it's a squad of 8 guys. They've got weapons which look more heavy duty than the jackals. They're not quite Khorne berserkers, but they're definitely not mindless cultists either. They're going to hit reasonably hard. Are they going to get hit hard enough to kill 5 Space Marine scouts or 10 Imperial guardsmen? Because if they are, that makes them incredibly good at an early game trade piece. Because I imagine these guys are going to sit somewhere in between your Jackal and your Berserker point costs. So you're looking at maybe 80 points for a unit of 8 of these guys. They're probably going to be toughness 3. They're probably going to have 1 wound. I would say they're probably going to have a feel no pain because they have the blood banks on their backs. And they're going to hit relatively okay, depending on the weapon profiles. Like, I feel like if you can make a whole squad of aspirants with the double-handed chain glaive, they're going to hit pretty hard. And then we have to start wondering about their special rules, because that's where the real interesting meat of this datasheet is. I've already said I think they're going to have a feel no pain. And there's a lot of people online thinking that they're going to have infiltrate, and I don't think so. I personally don't see that happening, even though the combination of infiltrating units and units which can scout is really, really powerful on the tabletop. I think it's a lot more likely that these guys have scout built into their data sheet. You know, they've got these augmented prosthetic legs, which I don't think necessarily speaks to being able to infiltrate ahead, but I do think it means that they're going to move faster. They're going to want to get stuck in. They're going to want to prove themselves because they are emulating bloodletters. So I can kind of see that sort of scout roll on them as well. And I can see that they're probably going to be base movement 7 because I think they are going to be a little bit faster with their augmentations. And then we have to consider how many of these unique weapons are going to have their own rules. And that's much harder to predict. Kill Team is very inconsistent with the kill teams and the war gear that they have, and that war gear having unique rules. You'll have some kill teams like the Kasserkin, where every weapon in the kit has a different rule on the tabletop. And then you'll have other ones like the Trader Guardsman, where certain parts of the kit, like the Medicae guy, the guy with the trench shield, don't actually have rules in 40k. So are all of these Goremongers going to have actual rules on the tabletop? I think the Impaler Harpoon will. I think the Skull Claimer will. I don't think the guy with the Ritual Knife is going to have specific rules. I don't think the Double Pistols will have specific rules. I think the Herald, the leader of the squad, maybe is going to have something unique. He might have a slightly better weapon, but I think by and large they're going to be pretty generic. I do think the aspirants themselves will have a chain glaive profile, which is going to be quite interesting. And I feel like that we're going to want to kit out the entire squad with those big chain glaives, except for maybe the Skull Claimer, who is probably going to have a similar rule to the Dishonored, where he kind of has a stronger attack. Maybe it's damage 2. The Stalker with the two-handed lacerators, I don't know. If there's a guy rocking around with 2 damage in that squad, it's definitely worth taking. And then the Harpoon, if I was a betting man, I would say the Harpoon is probably going to be a case of if you shoot an enemy unit, you get a bonus to your charge roll against these guys. I think that's, reasonably likely. It's what the Blood Slaughterer has. So just based off that, I think that's probably what the Harpoon will get. Cool weapon nonetheless. Is it going to be worth it? I don't know. I would say it depends a lot on the rest of the combat output from the squad. But regardless, when you put it all together and you look at this semi-elite mortal cultist squad, it can fill a role that we could really do with in the game, which is preserving our more important units for later turns while cheap chaff that is efficient goes out and picks up the enemy chaff. It's basically, again, to use a chess analogy, this is an actual pawn unit which can function well on the tabletop. Now, we haven't seen the datasheet for 40k. I don't know that for sure. I'm speculating. However, I'm excited about this unit because it can sort of do this role efficiently. If it's got scout, it could go in a rhino, giving the rhino scout. If it's got infiltrate, it can create corridors where our other scouting units can pass through safely. And we don't even know what specific unit rule this squad is going to have. I don't even have any idea what that's going to be. It could be literally anything. I'm not even going to try and speculate on it. But if it's something like reroll wounds on objectives, amazing. That's such a powerful rule. So we're going to have to wait and see on that. And overall, I think some people are disappointed about this reveal. They wanted Marines, they wanted Khorne. But I think when we get down to it, when we actually start using these guys on the table, we're going to realize that they are super, super useful. And I'm a little bit biased. I've got a soft spot for the mortal component of any Chaos Space Marine army. So I'm really excited to get another option. And I know there's probably people out there like Josie who are already running 100 plus jackals that this is really great for as well because they get even more units that they can cram into their mortal spam lists. So that's great. There's also some very interesting options when it comes to actually building these guys. If you are very eager and want to kind of get started on the kit, have a look at the Necromunda range. There's some really, really cool kits in there which can be adapted to sort of represent the Goremongers on the tabletop. I will potentially be doing a video about how to kit bash and convert these guys. Let me know in the comments down below if you're interested in seeing a Goremongers special where we kind of convert and paint some of these. But I'm already looking at the AdMech range, which has some really good double jointed robotic legs. Like look at the Taraxi or the Infiltrators. They have the perfect legs if you want to try and kit bash these guys before the kit is actually on sale. So I'm going to be building some of these guys probably today because I'm just so excited about them. But overall, I think a very interesting unit, one which maybe none of us really expected to see, but it is a new unit for the World Leaders, which is great. It doesn't even really matter what it is. It's just great that we actually have a new unit. I can't wait to see their data sheet. It's going to be incredibly interesting to see how we can utilize it in the different attachments. And obviously, with the Codex on the horizon, there's going to be a whole host of rules which will be applicable to these guys, which we're going to have to work through as well. But awesome that we have a new unit, potentially new role on the tabletop, filling in a nice little spot that we could have done with. So I think this is really, really good release. But let me know down below in the comments if you agree or disagree. There's a lot of people talking about it in our Discord today. So if you're not already in there, hop in, have a chat with the gang, see if your opinions are the same as everyone else, and maybe get into a little bit of a debate or something. I'm super hype. I hope you guys are too. We finally got some new units for 40k. Really great news. So thank you so much for sticking around watching this very impromptu, quickly put together review video. I know it wasn't as well structured as what we normally have, but this is a very reactionary video just to kind of get it out there and say that the Red Path is excited about the Goremongers, and I can't wait to see what they do on the tabletop. So until the next one, folks, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Let us know all your thoughts down below and hop into our Discord. I've been Dara, you've been watching The Red Path. Stay healthy, stay safe, and kill, maim, burn.